Hello everyone, I'm here today with the indie developers at Hideworks who are making a fantastic game, Liminal Point, which we talked about previously, a survival horror game that actually goes back to a lot of the roots of survival horror, what that genre is, inspired by many of the greats, but doing its own thing. So I'm here today with those developers who are Lord Zero and Lady Zero, and I want to thank them so much for being here. So thank you very much for being here, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. We're very happy to start this interview.
Yeah, this is really fantastic, and we talked a little bit off camera and a little bit over email, and you're both very kind, and you've been very kind to me. We had to reschedule this, so I appreciate your flexibility, and I thought we would just hop right into it. And those of you watching at home are probably going to mainly see me and then my screen on Discord as I record the call. Basically what we're going to be doing is just kind of going back and forth between them and me and answering some questions. So the first question I did have for the two of you is, can you tell us about your game just in general? I know you've already done some promotion on it and some stuff on social media, but in your words in this interview, what do you want people to know about the game kind of going into it at the start of this interview?
So this is a survival horror game inspired in the classics such as Resident Evil games and Silent Hill, and we're doing a little bit of a different spin on it by turning it into an isometric game. So bringing survival horror with this new kind of camera perspective, but still trying to feel as a classic traditional RE or Silent Hill game. But obviously we're trying also to tell a complete new story as nothing related to those games, and see how it goes.
Yeah, it looks really, really, like, I can tell looking at it that it's obviously inspired by the greats, but it's doing its own thing, and that's something I really liked about it. I think that, there's always these games that you can see throughout history without throwing any under the bus where it's like people will call it a clone. I can tell that this isn't trying to be a clone of anything. It's very clearly trying to be its own thing, which I really respect that about it. And I guess just kind of a follow-up in regards to that, how did you go about making sure in a way like, okay, we want to be inspired, we want to take inspiration, and we want to know what made this genre so good and make it our own? Was that a difficult process to do that?
Well, we've been fans of this type of games for a long time, so we kind of speak the vocabulary of this type of games.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not say it was very difficult. And another thing, there's a phrase from a famous author. I honestly forgot who he was, but it's also the title of the book that says, if you copy from one source, you're just basically copying it. But if you pick up a bunch of different sources and you copy a little bit from each one and you kind of blend it together, you kind of get your own unique mix. So we're kind of doing that, right? We wanted to take different aspects from different games that we like. Like we like the very psychological nature and the dark story from Silent Hill, and we like the combat and the inventory management and the looking around the map and having to look at the map for clues to where to go next and plan your next move. So that we kind of took from Resident Evil. So yeah, we picked up different sources, and even for the story, right? Like the story is not really looking at any of these games. Is actually inspired by different movies and books and stuff like that, and our own spin on it, of course. So we took different little bits of inspiration from here and there and kind of tweaked it, changed it, made our own thing make sense, and until we have something that feels completely fresh and new.
Yeah, and I love that about it. I loved seeing the inventory management, because I know that I don't think enough survival horror games, especially in the modern era, do that. It's something I remember, especially from Resident Evil 4. It felt like a puzzle. It's like, what do I put where? I was really impressed to see that kind of thing here.
Yeah, the inventory management is a puzzle on its own, so it's like a part of the actual gameplay, is the fact that you need to manage your inventory, you need to calculate your resources that you're going to use and what you're going to leave, what you're going to keep with you, where you're going to go. So it's its own puzzle as well.
Yeah, I love seeing that.
Yeah. Everything in the game. This is something I've learned. I actually only played the first Resident. I've been a fan of Resident Evil for many years, but I
Hmm.
only recently actually played the first one, and I played the remaster HD,
Hmm.
and it's something that I noticed that I really hadn't thought much before. Is that because, like you said, newer games don't really do that, and even Resident Evil 4 doesn't have that, or any of the following Resident Evils that even the map is its own puzzle, right? It's a puzzle you need to crack, and it not just by figuring out where you need to go, but like which paths you need to go, which paths are you going to clear, which ones did you clear. All this is a puzzle on its own. So it's a very interesting game because
As well as
every
the monsters, the monsters that you want to take care of,
yeah.
the monsters you want to avoid and not spend any ammunition on, and the monsters that you want to,
Or what resources
eliminate.
to collect,
Yes.
where and when. Everything is a puzzle in the game. So it's the inventory management, which is brutal. It's the map management. It's there's so many things that
Kind of
everything is a
resource
puzzle.
management.
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
way.
everything is a
Yeah.
puzzle. It's really interesting. So we kind of want a little bit of that in Liminal Point too.
I love that, and I'm really impressed by it. So I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did go that direction. But I did want to ask, in general, I know this might be something where you have to see how the game does, or it might be something where it's story related. But in regards to seeing this game, is this something where you'd ever plan on, building off of this, either with this character or different characters, or like, a series, or is Liminal Point designed to be just it is a standalone one-time game, and then you do the next project after that?
So the story of Lyra is a self-contained story, and it's a
Mhm.
complete one. But the way we're setting up the world is very similar to what Silent Hill did, and in a way what Resident Evil does as well. Well, I would say probably more like Silent Hill.
More like Silent Hill.
Yeah, where every
We have a location that is made, have its own kind of soul and its own story, and that location can attract other characters and other stories to itself, like it's kind of done in Silent Hill.
yeah.
Because we have Ashen Point Island,
Mhm.
and Lyra's story would be complete, but then we may expand on other characters or a new story, but in the same kind of location.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. So there's always hope if people love Liminal Point that we might revisit that world with someone else in the future. If there's a story then that presents itself, it sounds like.
Yeah, so this particular story will be complete, but the world lives on.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So definitely different characters, same location, but it's similar to Silent Hill, like you have Harry and then you have James, completely different people, but in the same world, and there could be some parallels. Another thing, and I like to use as an example, even though it's a very different example, is Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
That you always have this anchoring things, like chocobos, or there's always a seed character. So similar to that vein, in our case, the island of Ashen Point is going to be the anchor. But that said, we also, if people really like it, and there's interest in seeing something about somebody of the actual characters presented in the story, we might make a spin-off, with a character or another, kind of similar to Maria's Born from a Wish kind of a thing.
I love that. And so speaking of that, you mentioned Lyra, and the other character, her name is Myra, right? The one that plays
Mira.
off her?
So it's Lyra and Mira.
Mira. Okay. So, but looking at those characters and the character design, I know that nowadays it's always complex to design a character, especially a female character or a woman. When I look at the character of both of these characters, I can tell in a lot of ways that you went in on this beauty and this dark aspect of the world, and kind of the rock star vibe and all of these different things. I really love that. This is one of my favorite types of character design, and I kind of wanted to know what went into designing these two characters, aesthetically, and how that process was for you.
So Lyra is was a rising rock star. So we wanted to make sure she was beautiful, like really beautiful, and very edgy, super cool, kind of 90s vibe. that's also another thing.
Yeah.
We grew up in the 90s, so we kind of like this
Yeah.
black leather kind of big
Yeah.
boots. At least, I was kind of like that, even
Yeah.
dressed like that. So everybody, not just her, but everybody in their band is kind of designed with that in mind. So the male performers are super handsome as well,
Yeah.
strong, muscular, good
Like if you
looking.
look at the biggest stars of the 90s, they all have this edgy look and they look very cool and they all very beautiful, attractive people. And especially like when you look at some kind of pop rock stars, you can see that. And we wanted that look transition. And we had a few comments from people and we said, yeah, she's a rock star. So, and then when we say that, it makes sense for people like, oh, now it makes sense. Her outfit makes a lot of sense.
And we wanted players to fulfill the fantasy of becoming someone exceptional. Like, because when we're playing games, at least that's how I feel.
Yeah.
When we're playing a game, we want to be somebody really cool. Somebody that I would aspire to be, somebody exceptional. Not just, I mean, it depends on the game, obviously, but in this particular case, if we're playing as a rising rock star, we want to feel like somebody really, really cool.
Yeah.
Other than that, the design as an iterative process. So, in fact, if you look at the very early prototypes we start posting on the game, she looked kind of completely different, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we start testing her with the environment, see how that flows, her motions, the enemy designs,
Also
everything.
the perspective.
The perspective.
We have to make sure that she looks good in the perspective because we have isometric perspective.
And also because it's a dark game, so
Yeah,
having
the
black
dark.
leather and the dark environment was a bit of a challenge, but it actually
She
works.
stands out from the background and everything around her, even if there is fog or some other elements in the special effects, so she can still stand out and you can see your character well.
Yeah, so a lot of elements and a lot of iteration went through in her design. Even the fact that she has red hair now. So a lot of it went into to designing this
Because
character.
we tested different hair colors to see what looks best from the perspective and in environment around the character, and we came to a conclusion that the kind of red hat looks very good in like the color choices we have for our game and the perspective.
Yeah, I was very impressed by her design in general, and I think that it's unfortunate that you get it's okay to get questions, but I think it's unfortunate that when you have a character design of a strong and beautiful person like this, there will always be questions or comments you get about it. But I think for me, hearing that she's a rock star and knowing that, or was a rock star, I should say, ahead of time, I look at her and to me, she's kind of like, wow, this is the kind of person that growing up in the 90s, I was a little younger, this is the type of person that in the early 2000s, I would have a big poster of her on my wall. I would have had a big crush on this singer.
Yeah, exactly. It should makes again sense for the story. She's a rock star, and she should be that person that if everything went well and it didn't come to where it came in the story, she would be on everybody's wall, in the poster, in the everywhere. Her face would be everywhere, and the band members as well.
Yeah, I love that, and I love seeing that in the design.
Yeah.
And with her, I was wondering too about this, and I know that it's probably different at different levels of development. Is this something where when you designed her character, did you have anything else in mind for cosmetics? Like, is it something where it's like, oh, if I beat the game, I might get a different jacket? Or is it something where it's like, this we honed in really hard on her design, and like those classic survival horror games, like James in Silent Hill, it's like you're not earning cosmetics, you're James. Is that kind of the direction you went with her design?
Yes. We actually thinking about getting unlockable costumes for different endings of the game, but we also considering to have different outfits that you can choose in the beginning of the story. Something like what Tormented Souls did, so you can choose her outfit in the beginning, and then by playing the game, you can unlock other outfits and replay, and that gives you replayability, so you can replay the game with different outfits that you earned by finishing different stories or different endings. And then,
but just to be clear, the it's not like we have like a customization system of any sorts. It's just the suit, the clothes you see Lyra in all the trailers. That's the main suit, right? And that's the suit that she's meant to be wearing. But there's an alternative suit that people can pick if they prefer to dress her a little bit differently. But it's not like you can pick and choose, different jackets or different hairstyles or any of that. No,
Yeah.
that's not really what we're looking
it
for.
would be not customization.
And the rewards is definitely, sorry, the other unlockable outfits is definitely like a reward for you finishing the different endings. So you get very similar to what Silent Hill did, and even Resident Evil. You get like this unlockable costumes. Some of them can look really cool or really funny, and that's your reward for finishing the game with different endings.
I love that. That's, very much something I think gaming has lost. Not to make it about that, but I think a lot of games, now it's like everything is nickel and dimed. Everything is, okay, well, how do we get the player to buy another costume ahead of time? And
no, we're not doing that. This game is, you pay for the game. And you get everything.
Yeah,
no, nothing of that sort. So if we do a DLC, then it's going to be, a different story. But it would need to be like something like really substantial, like a new game, right? But there's not going to be like this microtransaction stuff. We are not into that at all.
Yeah, you will just have to play the game to unlock the new weapons and like difficulties, outfits, but you don't have to purchase them. No.
I love that. That's awesome, because that's that's also something that I think sometimes separates indie game development from huge corporations. Is it's like the value in these games to me is incredible. Like the amount that is packed into a game that I feel like there used to be, and luckily there's not as much anymore. There used to be this stigma around indie games of, oh well, the indie game, it's smaller and this and that. And I found that with games like this, it's more like it's focused and there's actual unlockables like gaming used to be. And it's not all focused on credit cards. It's focused on how you perform in the game. Was that, how did you come about that philosophy, I guess I should ask, of like, was it hard to, because I know that game development is such a taxing process. Was it really hard on you to say we have to give the players as much value as possible in this piece of art, or was that just something you always knew in the back of your mind going in?
I mean, we're gamers, longtime gamers.
This is what we like.
We're not, and I think this is the problem with bigger companies right now, is that they're not run by game developers; they're run by investors. Right, so they only look at numbers. They don't really care about what the customers feel. No, we want to make sure that people will really enjoy what we're making, because we want to play it ourselves, so we want to enjoy it. We want to make sure a lot of people that love this type of games enjoy it, and we would not try to cheat people out of this enjoyment by introducing some sleazy techniques to sell and transactions and stuff like that. Now we want to make sure the complexity lies in the game and not within how you achieve something by purchasing X and doing Y. Now we don't want any of that. All the complexity should be inside of the game. The decisions you take on a moment to moment. Should I shoot this enemy? Should I spend bullets? Should I? But not like, I need to go through hoops and loops to get a different costume, and now I need to wait for the sale or this and that. Now that doesn't make any sense for us. We don't like that. We like to pay for a game and we get a good chunk of game and we have a lot of fun with it, like in the old times.
It helps that we are gamers ourselves. We play a lot of games. We love games, and we love survival horrors. We love other type of games. So we're just making the game that we would love to play ourselves, and the game that we would enjoy ourselves. That's how this is one of our main philosophies in our company, is just we're trying to make the games that gamers will love and would play and replay like we do ourselves.
I love that. So really you're trying to go into it and you're saying, okay, what made the classics so special? Why are people replaying them even to this day? And
Yeah, we play game ourselves, and like, why did we like this game? Like, what can we take from this? Why did I enjoy this game so much? And how can we take something from it and apply it to our own game?
It's actually a good point. Like, sometimes it's when we get inspiration or reference, it's not just, oh, let's look at this feature and let's bring this feature in. It's more like, how did I feel when I was playing this game? What kind of feeling did I get by playing this specific moment? And let's try to recreate that. Yeah. Even if it's using a completely different, gameplay mechanic or something. But the feelings that from those old games, I guess that's a very good lesson there that we're trying to mimic.
Yeah.
I love that because, something I heard, people will talk about old games, or they'll talk about, even in what I do, they'll talk about old YouTubers, like, oh, this YouTuber used to do this, now they do this, and they'll say, I miss this thing, or I miss this game or this movie. And I saw a quote that it sounds kind of like what you're doing, where it's, do you actually miss that thing necessarily that you can go back to, or do you miss the way it made you feel? And it sounds to me like that's what you want, is you don't want to make a game, you don't want people to say, oh, this is like this. It's more like, wow, this connects with me, it makes me feel this way X amount of years later. It sounds kind of like that's what you had to go for in developing this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a
like, I would prefer people say, like, oh, this game is like Silent Hill. I would prefer people say this game made me feel and enjoy it like I did enjoy Silent Hill, for example. So that would be like our goal, to make people feel a certain way and enjoy it as much as they enjoyed other games and other stories and other, like, movies and books and so on, everything that we're taking inspiration from.
I love that. That's great.
And make people feel and enjoy it as much.
And so, looking at your game, one thing that we talked about off screen, a little bit over email, was liminal. And we talked about in previous videos and in summaries and things like that, when the game was first announced, there were a lot of people latching onto this word liminal and giving it a meaning that they or the internet had given it in the past. Could you kind of explain, and maybe briefly, like, a little bit what happened there and what liminal actually means in the context of your game, just so that everybody can hear it from your, own words?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny you mentioned that, because even the last couple of days, I was looking at YouTube and seeing what people are posting about our game. And again, some of them going back to the back rooms, but it's crazy. It's crazy that some of them even, I don't know, I guess they just get AI to write the whole thing, because one of them, even the trailer is passing and the narration says there's absolutely no combat, and you can see Lyra with a shotgun shooting some enemies. There's no combat, only liminal spaces, and I'm like, oh my god. But yeah, so definitely not, it's definitely not the backrooms kind of game, and definitely not, the liminal part is not because of liminal spaces. So in our case, the word liminal is going for the psychological and emotional threshold. This moment, this point of transition, where and this is also regarding what we discussed previously, that again, Ashen Point is an anchoring point, can have different stories. So this liminal point is the liminal point for each one of these characters in these stories, the internal turning point in their lives, where they decide to confront their nightmares and try to get moving forward with their lives. That's our liminal point. This moment, this transition point, that it's also metaphorical, could be that if they either succeed by defeating their inner demons, or they will be consumed by them. So basically, in other words, is more about this psychological threshold than the backroom situation, because that's definitely not, we're not going to have just these liminal spaces and she's walking around it. No, it couldn't be farther from the truth. There's also going to be a lot of comment because Some people are absolutely crazy saying there's no combat. I'm pretty sure they didn't even look at the trailer.
Had like AI
Yeah.
write the text,
Because
put the text over the trailer, which was funny.
The video is passing,
He's
and
literally shooting at the monster, and it says there is no combat.
it's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, that's the meaning for the word liminal in our game is that.
That makes sense. And so, yeah, I would assume there's been a big plague on YouTube, Twitch, and all these sites of like Chat GPT, where someone will put in a trailer or a picture or a name and say, make me a video.
Right.
It sounds like you guys were a little bit of a victim of people not doing their due diligence on your game.
Yeah. But you know, for the most part, people like yourself are doing their due diligence and they're actually researching. They actually like the game. But then you get some people that just there's like 30 games in their video, and it doesn't matter. AI just goes through all of them, and just, you know, I'm pretty sure all the other videos, the other games also get some incorrect
representation
text.
text.
Well, that's something too that I do love that about any language, really. And, you know, as someone who studied the English language, a word like liminal can mean different things. So I like that, you know, this isn't necessarily the meaning that maybe the internet thought it was at first. Has that been a battle though, to tell people, hey, our game is actually about this? Like, has that been kind of a struggle in comments or social media or things like that? Or
we got a few comments saying, you know, I forgot, but I think we saw something on Reddit, like some people were saying this has nothing to do with Liminal Point, or sorry, Liminal Spaces, and other ones is like, oh, another Liminal Space game, I'm not interested. So yeah, unfortunately there is some people that don't even really take a look at the game, because I think if they look at the trailers, I mean, it's also, I guess, partially our fault, because if we use a word like this, we should have expected that some people were, you know, too focused on what they know, even though it's not correct.
Yeah.
Even though their definition of liminal, it's not backrooms, right? But that's the cultural perception that exists. So we should
just in the gaming.
We need to take that into account and definitely try to re-educate. I don't like this word re-educate, but try to clear people
this word to people
and clear any misconceptions, you know, with the actual meaning that we have. So that's something we're gonna try to do better.
Reintroduce and expand the meaning of the word.
But that said, you know, that said, most people get it. I would say like 90% of the people get it.
I think also most people, they just look at the trailer and they see the trailer, and it's more important for them what they see in the trailer than the name
of the
game.
That's actually something I don't know if you remember me saying this. I told you that like long time ago when we were picking up the game, that if the game is really cool, and I really want to play it, you can even call it a potato.
Yeah.
And people will still be interested, you know, this survival horror called Potato.
Yeah, so I think most people just looking at the trailer and they like what they see. They don't really care what the name is.
But that said, we had a lot of time looking for the cool name that made sense for the story, and that would make sense to make, you know, different games in the same universe. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure it out.
We were brainstorming. We were putting words together, looking through encyclopedias and synonymous of
that stuff that also still made sense for this game and potentially other games in the same universe. So that was tricky, but we finally figured something out that it's easy to remember, it's punchy, has a cool meaning that makes sense for the story.
It's also difficult because a lot of names already taken.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
We would come up with a name and be like, oh my god, this is perfect, and then we Google and there is already a game with that name we didn't even know about. Or 10 games with that name that we didn't even know there was a game with this. We thought we have the most original name, and then we Google and there is already a game from like even 5, 10, 15 years ago with that name, and we're like, oh my god, what do we do? So it took a little bit of time, to find the name for the game.
But we're very happy with it. Even
Yeah.
with the even with some people misinterpreting what the title is about. I'm still very happy with the title, because I think it's a really cool title, and it makes perfect sense for the story.
Yeah.
I love the title, and plus, it's one of those things where if you look back at the greats, you look at something like Silent Hill, and it's like, oh, this is just a quiet hill. Or you look at Resident Evil, it's like, oh, an evil person lives here. It's like if you first saw those titles, it might be, what is this? And then nowadays they're synonymous with horror, right? Nowadays they're a household name. Even a movie series, Saw. It's like, well, okay, what did you see? Okay, well, it's not about that. But I think one thing too, it sounds like to me, not to put any words in your mouth, it sounds like you might both have the same issue I have if you play a video game and it gives you the option to name your character. I sit there for half an hour trying to come up with a cool name. You guys had that for a video game. I'm sure that would be a lot more stressful.
Yeah, because then we need to, copyrights and make websites, make sure it reads well in the internet. I don't know. There's a whole other complication. So it's a very complex. It's a very complicated task, I would say. When it was one of the.
Yeah.
We were already developing the game.
You already working on the game, you still didn't know how to call it.
Yeah, and we were posting, and people were like going kind of crazy about it. Like we had 150,000 views in one of our prototype videos. So yeah, we were really taking our time to make sure that
Island, I think Ashen Point, we already had.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't remember.
We already had the name. We had the name for characters.
Oh, the characters.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that we had.
I think we even had a name for the island, but we didn't have the name for the game. It took the longest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Name for the game.
I'm sure that was difficult. And when you were trying to name these characters and you were trying to basically put together the monsters and all these different things and combine these meanings, because I know you said you wanted them to have meaning. I'm sure you can't share what the meaning would be right now, but once we've been playing through the game and kind of seeing some stuff and seeing some monsters, is it going to be apparent, oh, this monster had these design elements in it and it was kind of symbolic of this, or how did you go about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So every monster in the game, and even the main character's designs, obviously, but every monster in the game is a very symbolic representation of the inner turmoil that goes into Lyra's mind. This is something. So when I'm designing the enemies and the characters, I don't take so much like inspiration from other games, like visually, but I did saw once like this is, I don't know, like 20 years ago or even more, on Silent Hill 2, and I saw how what was their philosophy of designing the enemy characters, and that kind of stuck with me. Everything is very symbolic, so I try to integrate that design mentality when I'm making a character. So I take a look mechanically what we want the character to be like, the enemy per se. Like what's the gameplay mechanics this enemy brings to the table, what's the size it should have in the environment, and then try to see what kind of elements from the story I should incorporate on those. Very much like what Silent Hill 2 does. So yeah, if you look really closely to the designs of the enemies, you might be able to start piecing together some bits of the story. Because, yeah, if you look really closely, you probably can start figuring out some things about the story based on some of these symbolic aspects that they have. So yeah, this is a concept throughout the game. Every enemy should be symbolic of something in Lyra's story, and that's one of the things we want to keep going forward.
Well, that's one of my favorite types of horror in general for me, is psychological and how things tie together. Like I go to an area, the area is this way, what is meant by this, or I go to an enemy, it's meant this way, what's meant by this. Obviously there's other types of horror that are fun and enjoyable, but for me, I've always loved that, and I've always been a little disappointed if I find out, oh, it's just meant to be creepy. So I love the idea that these had meaning. Was that, is that like a really big brainstorming process? I guess I'm wondering that more for myself.
I can give you an example. Without spoiling too much. But for example, the TV monster that appears at the end of the trailer.
I love that one.
the TVs on its head are a representation of TV stardom and the fear of failing, as you're an aspiring TV star, for example. And the chains around his chest it's like chaining him down to this dream. So this kind of, metaphorical elements that we put into the designs. So it's not just like a cool monster with TVs on its head. No, it actually has, for that specific character, actually has a meaning.
I love that. That's really cool to hear. That always makes me happy. Some of these things, it's like sometimes I ask a question and it's for the interview itself more. I want the audience to hear. A couple of these questions like that are for me because that's the kind of game design I love. So I'm really happy to hear that. And I did have, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I was wondering, is there anything else you want to tell us about your characters and the backstory, or anything else that you want people to know about this game, kind of from your words, closing it out, where it's like maybe we haven't touched enough on this in the interview, or maybe other people haven't asked these questions and this is something we really want people to know about our game kind of going forward at all?
Yeah, so I can touch a little bit more into the story, because I think it's I mean, we're pretty proud of the story, but we're obviously still working on it, because the game is only coming out in 2026, right? So we're still figuring things out. But the essence is, Lyra was one of the guitarists from the band The Fallen Fairies, and this band is an alternative rock band that was getting a lot of attention, especially after they got to deal with a huge music producer called Langdon. Langdon was a peculiar guy, very eccentric guy with a very unique way of working, and he lived in a giant mansion in Ashen Point. So the band actually went to live in this big mansion, and spoiler alert, is the mansion that you see in the trailers. So they lived there, and they were preparing to have their national debut after signing a contract with this guy. Unfortunately, in the day that the band was actually scheduled to perform for the first time on a national level, Mira just vanished, and that's the big thing. Why did she disappear? And the years later, Lyra and the other band members got the message from Mira, telling them to go back to Ashen Point, and that's the whole thing about the game. That's the premise of the game. They need to go and find Mira, and what happens on that night that their dreams were supposed to come true, but instead they just became ashes. And if there's other stuff that I would like to mention about the game, is that the fact that we picked it to be an isometric type of game, because first it's really fresh compared to it's not just, there's a lot of third person, and I love those. I love third person games and first person games, but I feel like, and also from a technical standpoint, but I feel like growing up in the 90s as well, there's a lot of isometric games that are really cool, and we start thinking about making would the game work as an isometric survival horror. And then I actually went up and we played Signalis while we were thinking about this, and I was like, yeah, this could work. This is really cool. So there's definitely some things that I think will feel very different and very fresh by having an isometric type of game. For example, the boss battles are going to feel very different from a Resident Evil or a Silent Hill, because when you're from an isometric camera perspective, you have a better spatial view of the environment, so you can definitely do some cool attack patterns and stuff like that. I'm thinking about games like Death Door and
Death Door, yeah, good example of that. I really like playing that game.
So you will have a different feel in terms of the combat and exploration, but at the same time should feel very reminiscent and very all the points make you feel like this is a true classic survival horror, even though it has a little bit of a different take on it. So that's some of the things I would like to people to know about the game, and it's going to be an awesome game too. So that people should really focus on that too.
I love it. I can tell it's going to be an awesome game. You know, every time you and I know you have to kind of drip feed out gameplay because it's, you know, in development and stuff like that. Every time you do release a little more, I'm like, oh, cool. Or every time we see a different monster or things like that, or even the puzzles, I'm very impressed. So I do want to thank you so much for taking your time, you know, to be here. I appreciate that. I know you have your own work to do, so I highly do recommend everybody checks out the game. Wishlisted on Steam. That's one thing I know people can do. I know people can follow you on social media. Is there anything else people can do to, you know, kind of spread the word of the game?
Yeah, definitely spread the word about the game, because we could use all the wish lists we can get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you're not planning to get it on
even
Steam,
if it's not.
If you have an account, it would be really helpful if you could just wishlist it and then get it on a different platform. But if you have a Steam account, that would be very helpful for us to get the wish lists.
If you only play on consoles, maybe there's something for you to be excited as well.
Oh.
Without getting too much, but yeah, we've been kind of busy with that. And also, we actually posted today that we're we just opened the auditions for Lyra, and the drummer of the band is called Zane. But yeah,
I love it.
If you like survival horror, please share Liminal Points, wishlist it, and we look forward to seeing you playing it.
I look forward to it coming out. Check it out. Please wishlist it. Spread the word. They have, you know, social media. They have their X account. I retweet or repost, whatever it's called nowadays, that they changed it, things about this game a lot, and I'm sure we will speak to both of you in the future, so thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was very fun.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
Well, I want to say a huge thank you to Hideworks for taking the time to do this interview with me. It's something I hope to do more often going forward with other people. Hopefully this will be a nice little test run for that. I look forward to talking to them in the future again, and also I do hope that you will go and support their game, leaving a wish list on Steam. Looking forward to it, following them on places like X, which is Twitter, I prefer to call it Twitter, or anything like that. All of these are great ways to help support independent game development, and thank you for taking the time to listen today as they shared their story and details about Liminal Point. Links, as always, are in the description down below to help support our channel. We also have channel memberships and a Patreon, which you can check out for exclusive content. Have a fantastic day. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And as always, everyone, stay shui.